There are mornings that feel ordinary until something happens, and the ordinary fracturing becomes the thing everyone remembers. January 10th, 2013 began like that in Valdosta, Georgia. A small city where winter mornings bring a chill that makes breath visible and footsteps sharper. In a few hours, the quiet hum of a school day would be replaced by an uproar that reached far beyond this town. But for a little while longer, the school was simply a place where kids moved between classes, teachers took attendance, and custodians pushed carts down hallways that knew every secret. This is the story of what happened that day, the facts we have, the disputes they produced, and the human cost that no statistic can ever measure. Kendrick Johnson was 17. Friends called him KJ. He was a student at Lowndes High School, a place where he had teachers, teammates, classmates, and routines that anchored his days. People who knew him described a polite, easygoing young man. He ran on the track team, he played sports, he joked with classmates. He had plans, a life that, in ordinary terms, felt full of possibility. He was not famous, he wasn't a headline. He was a typical teenager in a typical town. Until, in the space of a single day, everything changed. On January 10th, Kendrick arrived at school that morning. Surveillance cameras, the kind that watch hallways and doorways in nearly every modern high school, recorded him at 1:09 p.m., carrying a folder and walking down a corridor toward the gym. That is the last clearly confirmed footage the public has seen. But the surveillance system was not perfect. Angles were limited. Some cameras were out of alignment. Some views were obstructed. That imperfect coverage left gaps that, after his death, became a source of intense scrutiny and public conversation. As the afternoon wore on, Kendrick missed classes he was expected to attend. He missed the bus that would have taken him home. Concern began to spread, first among friends and then to his family. By the next morning, the school routine had been interrupted in a way no one could have anticipated. At about 10:30 a.m., custodians and staff noticed something odd. One of the large vertical wrestling mats stored in the old gym had a pair of socked feet protruding from the center. A closer look revealed a body. Kendrick's body, trapped inside that rolled mat, positioned upside down. School staff secured the area and called local law enforcement. The routine of classes halted. Parents were notified. A small town's ordinary day suddenly contained the most extraordinary of losses. Local police arrived. The Lowndes County Sheriff's Office took custody of the scene. Investigators treated the gym as a crime scene. Evidence was photographed, statements were taken, and the medical examiner was contacted. Because the discovery unfolded in a school, with students present and the community shaken, the response was swift. Yet from the first hours, the case would be marked by questions about evidence collection, timing, and the sequence of events that preceded the discovery. Officials described the body position and the scene in factual terms. The mat was rolled up, the body was inside, and certain items associated with Kendrick were at or near the mat. Those descriptions formed the backbone of the initial explanation and the beginning of public debate. A medical examination followed. The Georgia Bureau of Investigation conducted an autopsy. The official conclusion released by state authorities was that Kendrick Johnson died of positional asphyxia, a conclusion meaning he likely became trapped in such a way that his breathing was obstructed. This official finding relied on the forensic evidence available to the state pathologists and on the observed position of the body within the rolled mat. To many in the community, and especially to Kendrick's family, that official conclusion did not settle the matter. Kendrick's family sought an independent medical review. Independent examiners, hired by the family, examined tissue samples and reviewed available reports. These independent reviews raised questions and described injuries the examiners believed warranted further scrutiny. Important to this story is that multiple medical opinions existed: an official state autopsy and an independent review. In public conversation, those differing conclusions became one of the main reasons the case remained an emotional and disputed subject. Medical science can be complex. Different examiners, different methods, and different available materials can lead to different interpretations. That is a factual part of this case. Two professional opinions, not identical, both cited in subsequent coverage and discussion. Surveillance footage became a focal point. The tape that showed Kendrick walking toward the gym did not clearly show what happened inside. Other angles were missing or did not operate as expected. For many viewers of the public record, those gaps became a central frustration. Investigators released some footage and withheld other segments for investigative reasons. Independent journalists, legal representatives, and community members sought full access. The absence of complete video from every angle made establishing a precise minute-by-minute timeline difficult and allowed questions to persist. Establishing a precise timeline is a bedrock of good investigation. In this case, the timeline had holes, and those holes amplified the public's need for clarity. Investigators noted details at the scene: a pair of shoes, the mat's dimensions, and physical positioning. Statements and evidence reports described those items in neutral terms. The mat, a heavy, tall object used by wrestling teams, could, under certain conditions, trap a person if they were inside and could not free themselves. Students and staff described mat storage practices. Sometimes shoes and small items were placed inside or near mats. Those practices, combined with the physical characteristics of the mats, were part of the factual picture investigators examined. Understanding the normal use and storage of mats played a role in interpreting the scene. Whether that interpretation was sufficient remained a matter of public dispute. The investigation involved several agencies over time. Local police handled the initial response. The Georgia Bureau of Investigation conducted a forensic autopsy and investigative work. At points, federal agencies reviewed certain aspects of the case. The layers of jurisdiction are a factual element that shaped how evidence was collected, processed, and shared. Differing agency responsibilities and procedural protocols can sometimes complicate a case. Papers change hands. Tasks get assigned. That is part of the institutional reality here, and it influenced public perceptions about whether every lead was exhausted. For the Johnson family, the death of Kendrick became the central event of their lives. Publicly, they sought answers. Privately, they mourned. They attended memorials. They requested further review. They spoke to the press. They petitioned for inquiries. And they engaged legal and medical professionals to review the available evidence. Grief in a community has a cascade effect. Friends, teammates, teachers, and neighbors revisit memories, question routines, and look for meaning. The public manifestations, vigils, memorial services, and interviews are part of the factual record and the human story. National media attention arrived in waves. Cable news, local reporting, documentary filmmakers, and eventually long-form podcasts and YouTube videos examined the case. Each revisitation brought new audiences, renewed speculation, and renewed calls for clarity. Documentaries and investigative segments highlighted the differences between official accounts and family-commissioned reviews. They replayed footage, interviewed sources, and raised questions about practice and procedure. Those programs did not change the official autopsy ruling, but they did broaden public awareness and intensified debate. It is a fact that the case became a national story, and that media coverage shaped public perceptions, for better or worse, by bringing attention and by focusing on unanswered questions. Autopsy interpretation is not always binary. Pathology relies on available tissue, the time between death and examination, preservation conditions, and method. Experts can and do disagree, scientifically, professionally, and sometimes publicly. In Kendrick's case, the state autopsy concluded positional asphyxia. Independent reviewers hired by the family described findings they believed merited further investigation. Some aspects of tissue sampling and handling were later discussed publicly, including debates about whether all possible steps had been taken to preserve or analyze evidence. Those technical disagreements are important because they affect how a cause of death is described and how families perceive official findings. From the perspective of criminal law and official investigations, a key point is this: no criminal charges related to Kendrick Johnson's death were brought by authorities. Investigations were conducted and reports were issued. Various reviews took place over time, but the public record, the formal, charge-based record, shows no prosecution resulting from the initial discovery. That is an essential factual anchor. Law enforcement did not file criminal charges based on the investigations that have been publicly disclosed. Kendrick Johnson's death prompted conversations about school safety and equipment storage protocols. Schools across the country sometimes revisit procedures after a high-profile incident. Parents, educators, and administrators ask whether different practices, supervision policies, camera coverage, mat storage rules, could reduce the chance of tragedies. Those debates are part of the story's legacy. Beyond the immediate facts, communities assess whether systems should change to prevent similar occurrences. More than a decade after January 10, 2013, public interest persists. The case is frequently revisited in documentaries, podcasts, and online forums. For many, unanswered questions remain. For others, the official conclusion remains the definitive statement. What remains beyond dispute is the human dimension. A family lost a son, a community lost a student, and a school received an event that changed how people in Valdosta remember a particular January morning. Cases like this one invite intense public engagement. They also carry risks for families, for alleged suspects, if any are named in public debate, and for creators who retell events. That's why responsible storytelling matters. To present verified facts, to clarify what is official record and what is public speculation, and to treat people with dignity. At the center of every investigation is a life. Names, dates, and documents tell part of the story, but they cannot tell the whole truth of a life lived or a life lost. Kendrick Johnson's case remains one of those stories where the public record provides certain facts, and where questions, many of them heartfelt, still linger. If you have verified information about the events of January 10, 2013, please contact the appropriate authorities. For everyone else watching, remember, inquiry should be rigorous, conversation must be respectful, and the people involved, especially grieving families, deserve care. If this episode moved you, Please share it with respect and consideration. If you have factual, verifiable information about Kendrick's case, contact the authorities. Keep the conversation thoughtful. This is about a life and a family still affected by loss. Subscribe to Unsolved Plus. We investigate, we document, and we remember with care.